Hello everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick!
And welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. For those that watched part 1 of this 2-part mini-series on the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, you will have seen the supporting evidence for a second doorway. A doorway that Jean-Pierre Houdin believes leads to more chambers inside the pyramid. I can make a separate video on these chambers, as well as the evidence used by Houdin in the future. For now, I wanted to keep looking at the King's Chamber, the most famous and arguably the most important room inside the Great Pyramid, because there are yet more anomalies for me to discuss. The idea for this 2-part miniseries came about when I came across another hypothesis, that there is also a third possible doorway inside the King's Chamber, and so I thought the whole chamber warranted a closer look with the limited information I have available. And yes, I did get some scissors, card and tape, and created my own mini-scale model of the chamber in question. The third proposed doorway is on the western wall, blocked by the granite stone in the southwestern corner of the chamber on the lowest tier. Some claim that this stone is a plug, hiding a corridor or room to the west. The block is roughly square in shape, and is the only block on the lowest tier of the western wall that does not fit perfectly, with its lowest edge above the level of the floor slabs in the King's Chamber, therefore making it an anomaly. There were also attempts in history, possibly by the Caliph al-Mamun, to remove the block, as there is substantial damage on the joint above it, as well as the right hand edge, damage that has since been patched up with cement during restoration work. To back up the claim of a possible door, there is a low density anomaly on the floor just in front of the doorway, as shown here in my model, leading some to believe that there are in fact steps down if you get through the plug block. But on closer inspection, I have to say that I disagree with this idea. If he did try, the reason al-Mamun couldn't move the block is because this block is load bearing. There is a smaller block just above it, and therefore removing the lower block would force the block above to fall, which would also compromise the block above that. Furthermore, as stated in my last video, the floor level in the King's Chamber has subsided considerably, and before modern restoration work it was highly uneven. As this diagram shows, which I do believe has some vertical exaggeration, the King's Chamber is certainly not in a perfect state, and many of the old antiquarians noted just how uneven and crooked the floor was. Therefore the position of this block in relation to the floor level is not good evidence. Furthermore, georadar tests that were done in the King's Chamber, the results of which I only have in writing and not on a diagram, showed that there was no cavity behind this corner. But the same radar surveys did show that there was a possible cavity behind the western wall, but not in the corner, it was located in the centre. So, just like I did on my previous video on the second entrance in the northern wall, I went back to the diagram of the King's Chamber, which shows the arrangement of the blocks, and I identified any possible movable blocks in the lowest tier of the King's Chamber walls, those that are not load bearing. These blocks would be the only possible concealed entrances in the chamber. In the north wall there are two, the entrance used today and a square block directly in front of the sarcophagus as discussed in my last video. I am convinced that this is a door. In the east wall there is one in the southeastern corner, although this is unlikely to be a door as it is the main support for the larger block above. There is another candidate towards the northeastern corner, which is quite narrow, and due to its position being close to the entrance used today, it doesn't feel like a good place to position another doorway, as there would just be one small block between the two to support the entire corner of the King's Chamber. On the south wall, I believe there is a block in the southeastern corner that could move. A good candidate as it is also opposite the main entrance, is not load bearing, and is roughly the same shape. Like in the northeastern corner, where the main entrance is today, beneath the southeastern corner there is a large low density anomaly under the floor, again indicative of a cavity. There is also a possible movable block in the southwestern corner, but it's very small and in my opinion it's actually too small to be a doorway. In the west wall, there is just one possible doorway just north of centre, which is roughly square and is not load bearing. So, after looking at the lowest tier of each wall, I think really there are just 3 possible places where extra doorways could be, all of which I have highlighted on this diagram. And to be clear, I'm not saying that all of them are likely doors to hidden chambers, although of course that would be nice. If some of them are doorways, they could be simple access routes to the chamber during construction. We simply don't know. Saying that, and it isn't too much of a stretch to think there may be a second chamber beyond the King's Chamber. Because if you look at the internal layout of other pyramids, for example the Red Pyramid, we see that inside there is a chamber leading to another chamber leading to another. And from this third chamber, without being able to inspect it close up myself, and without having the opportunity to do a geophysical survey, I also have a feeling that this darker block leads to a fourth chamber. I've covered this in a previous video on the Red Pyramid, and this block has a different colour to every other block in the western wall, has a chipped and uneven top edge, and a chipped and broken bottom left hand corner. To me, it looks like this block has been tampered with. And although there are a number of possible interpretations, one is that this block could have been added later. You enter the Red Pyramid's so-called burial chamber from the north, in the northeastern corner, just like in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. In the Red Pyramid, there is a huge excavated pit in the floor, and we know that people have also excavated down under the floor of the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. As I've said, I believe there is a possible entrance in the centre of the western wall of the Red Pyramid, and GeoRadar shows there is a possible cavity in the western wall of the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. Is all this a coincidence? Well, maybe. And looking at the western wall of the Great Pyramid, there are a few blocks that could be movable, all highlighted in this diagram. The possible door on the west wall of the Red Pyramid burial chamber is on the third tier, so any of these highlighted could be a possible doorway. It doesn't have to be at ground level. Now, going back to the southeastern corner of the King's Chamber, and this block in particular is a good candidate for a doorway. For a start, it is directly opposite the main entrance, and whether by Al-Mamun or somebody before him, this block as well as the blocks directly above and diagonally have been damaged. The floor was also damaged, and today, the Egyptian authorities have placed a dehumidifier in this corner, which covers up the block in question, as seen in Brian Forster's most recent video on the Great Pyramid. Yes, it is an obvious place to search for another doorway, being opposite the main entrance, and it looks as though somebody had this exact same thought in the past, but we really don't know anything more. Clearly, whoever damaged the block in question didn't get through. The overlying block is also quite large. Not as large as the block above the main entrance, but large enough to support the wall if just below was another entrance. We also know that under the floor in front of this block, there is a large negative density anomaly indicating there is a cavity, just as there is in front of the main entrance. Looking further up the wall from this corner, on the south face and on the fourth tier of stone from the floor, it looks as though something has seeped out of the upper joint of this block, with linear, water-like stains running down the block. It's yet another anomaly, and another little mystery to solve. And there is also another curious observation we should take note of, this time on the eastern wall of the King's Chamber, and this one is a clearly different finish on the stone on the lowest tier. As you can see on the lowest tier, the stone is smoother than those above it. But why? Before ending my brief look at the King's Chamber walls, I sifted through around 100 pictures of the King's Chamber, including historic photographs, modern ones with high resolution, modern HD video, diagrams by antiquarians and modern reconstructions, to try and see if there were any other anomalies. Of course, I also created my own scale model, which my daughter is calling a home for a My Little Pony. As shown already, if you look at this picture from the so-called burial chamber of the Red Pyramid, your eyes are instantly drawn to the huge pit in the floor. But when you scan the walls, this one dark block stands out on every single photograph. Why is it darker? Is it a different rock type? Was it added later? Is it open on the other side? And is there moisture from a void that is affecting the coloration? I simply don't know. But with this in mind, did I find anything this bizarre in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid? Well, for a start, 90% of the images and video from this chamber are dark, making it hard to see subtle changes in colour between blocks. I didn't notice anything specific on the north, south and western walls, but I did find something peculiar on the eastern wall. this wall is rarely photographed, being at the opposite end of the sarcophagus, and therefore tourists and researchers rarely focus their attention at this location. Most of the photographs that do exist are dark due to minimal lighting, all except for a handful that I've come across. As you can see, there is one anomalous block on the 4th tier of masonry. This tier of stonework on the eastern wall is also the most symmetrical in the entire King's Chamber, with a central block flanked by 2 smaller blocks which are flanked by 2 larger. As this one photograph shows, the central block is substantially lighter in colour. Also, there is a discoloration or maybe a chip or broken section in its top left hand corner. It could be something, it could be nothing, I don't know. But it did remind me of the dark block in the Red Pyramid with how much it stands out. Does it lead to a secret chamber, a service tunnel used in construction, or is it simply just a different coloured block of Aswan granite used for the centre of this wall? I just wanted to mention this block that is seen in old photographs from the King's Chamber, because after my last video, a number of people asked me where it came from. It is shown here with someone sitting on it, and appears in a number of photographs from the 1990s and before. After doing some digging, this block is a floor slab, the one that was removed from the northwest corner of the King's Chamber, and it's interesting to observe its thickness. Apparently the floor slab thickness does vary from block to block, but removing the 3 slabs, which is thought to have been done by the Caliph al-Mamun, could not have been an easy job. With this video, if nothing else, I think I've identified a few anomalies that need closer attention in person inside the King's Chamber. On my next trip to Egypt, which I'm hoping to take in the next 12 months, the features mentioned in this video will certainly be on my radar. But for now, a cardboard model will have to do, but I won't stop searching for answers. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.